Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to take another look at our VSFTPD server, and specifically, we are going to take a look at how to capture the username and password that is being transmitted to the server using Wireshark. Again, this is part of a larger series of videos focusing on our file transfer protocol, or FTP server, used in conjunction with our Oracle VM VirtualBox manager, Centos, and ultimately for the purposes of networking. Now, you'll notice that I have both my server and my client up and running. I'm going to go ahead and connect with an account that has sudo permissions, or rather log in with an account that has sudo permissions to my server and just any account on the client. Now, this video assumes a number of things that you have already set up the FTP server on your server. You've been successful at having network communication between your client and your server, as well as having installed Wireshark on the server. Having set up an account on the server to connect via FTP, have the correct policies and permissions in place. Now, before we get started, I do want to take a second to emphasize that you want to make sure and use what I'm showing you only for the purposes of demonstration. In other words, at best, you could argue that this is some sort of questionable behavior. If anything, you want to use this as a reason or a justification for not passing passwords in clear text. And lastly, we want to make sure that the password that we're about to send is not something that's important to you. In other words, not part of an email address or perhaps your banking information. So to begin with, on the server, what we want to do is we simply want to go to our activities. We want to go ahead and launch a terminal, and we're going to go ahead and use sudo with our Wireshark command to be able to launch Wireshark and bind to the appropriate network interface. Now, which network interface are we going to use? Well, we got a couple of ways that we could check this. You could go back to the terminal real quick, and you can just simply run your ifconfig, and you'll see the interfaces associated with your server. You can do the same thing over here on the client. And again, what we can do here is we can run our ifconfig, and you can see that our client is going to have the IP address of 2.99, and the server is going to have the address of 2.100. And in this case, the server is on our S8 interface. So what we want to do is we want to select the capture for the S8 interface. To test our network connectivity on the client, we can simply just ping our 192.168.2.100. And sure enough, in Wireshark, you'll see some echo requests and replies. And at that point, what we can also do on the client is we can also nmap the server to see what resources are available on the server. And you can see a bunch of traffic being generated to the server and being captured in Wireshark. You could see all of the different port scanning. And then ultimately on the client, you could see which ports are available, including our FTP port. Now, I encourage you to go ahead and stop the capture here, and then simply go ahead and save this capture, and then look at it at a later time. We're just simply going to call this one capture number 1. And we can go ahead and save it. Now let's get to the real experiment at hand. So we want to start the capture again on the server. And now what we want to do is we want to attempt to FTP to the server using the same IP address, in other words, the 192.168.2.100. And you can see that as soon as I attempt to connect, you'll get some traffic, some TCP traffic that corresponds to FTP. You could see the port number right there, 21. And I'm now going to connect using that account with that disposable password. So in this case, it's going to be the GCM-FTP user that we created in an earlier video, and that disposable password, in other words, the one that I don't mind showing here in this video. And if you want to, you can go ahead, we can stop the capture, or we can simply notice here that there is the password in clear text. You can see the request, and you can also see the account that it is associated with. And what you can do at this point then is you can also see what additional traffic it's generated when you do things like an ls-l. You could see those requests, as well as, for instance, a CD into the uploads folder. And again, at this point, what I would encourage you to do is just simply go ahead and stop the capture. And then you can just simply scroll through looking at the individual requests. For instance, you could see here where it set that directory send OK. You can see where that corresponds to over here on the client. And again, both for the requests to the server as well as the responses to the client. So hopefully you found this video useful. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and thank you for watching.